Alright, so let's do a little thought experiment here. Let's suppose, as we seem to do all the time while we're criticizing people, this guy, that Corey Good is telling the truth. And I guess this means that there are some potentially very powerful allies for the human cause that are blue avian aliens or whatever they are. And they are taking their energy to help in some way and have deputized a certain individual to share this news with us to move forward. How exactly would these aliens feel about a race of people who was constantly criticizing this person without taking the time to try to verify this on their own? And also, wouldn't this behavior put you further instead of closer from being able to discern or contact these beings for yourself? I guess another thing I'd like to say is, if it's such an obvious and nonsense conspiracy with no basis or anything, and it's obviously a cult, why even bother with it? I mean, why waste hours and hours, hours and years, just informing people with negative opinions? I mean, asking questions is fine, and creating a culture of asking questions is also fine, but that doesn't seem to be exactly what's going on in a lot of cases. It's not news, it's not information to consistently slander someone. It's not something being brought forward. It's not when it constantly devolves into the same criticisms and the same, attacks. So what I really think cuts to the root of this and starts to really explain some of the problems here is looking at the story of the reptilians and their AI god and the enemy of the blue avians and the Loosh, kind of metaphorically. So what they say is the Loosh is what is fed upon. It's a negative energy created by the actions of people, beings, under the direction of this AI god for them to feed upon. So to make this a metaphor, look at their real life enemies and the things they're doing and the people following them, and then look at the energies created by this, what they're sharing, and what kind of perspective they have, how they're taking that and directing their energy for these things. Is it aggressive, creating situations where people are making personal attacks on people and the way they look in video chats and stuff? Is the energy and community situation being created by these people something that an extraterrestrial race would respect or be kind of put off by? A couple other things I think are pretty important to think about. First thing is censorship and whether or not people are allowing commenting or even chats on their YouTube videos, and whether or not that is open communication or controlled communication, and how that makes you hold your emotions when you can't contribute or interact with what you're viewing. And another thing is hearsay, as I guess Corey Good mentioned. If you're watching an hour, 2 hour long video about something, you should probably analyze how much of it is actual evidence and data, and how much of it is spent spinning, attacking people, wasting time, throwing out just accusations and hate, stuff like that. I don't support people calling Falun Gong a cult. For one thing, it's some meditation exercises. It's a form of Qigong, which is practiced in many forms. And for another thing, the PDFs of the book have been available for at least, I believe, 9 years now for free all over the internet. Anyone could be a practitioner or have some connection to Falun Gong. And not in a culty way, because as I said, you can just get these books anywhere, so there's no compulsion to be a part of something to have this knowledge. I would also be suspicious of people saying things like, these are paraphrases, but I'm sure you can figure out where they came from. Hey Corey, if you just shut up, we'll call off the dogs. Or, how would Corey know anything about Gaia? No one working for Gaia has any access to what's actually going on. And that's a paraphrase, but pretty much what was stated. And I'd also like to kind of cover the Jordan Sather situation. And I'm going to say, I've watched a ton of videos about this stuff, but I mean, I've yet to see any proof of malicious intent or culty control schemes here, just that he shared a tweet. What has been proven to me was that he was invited to contact in the desert, he was told he would receive a tape, and he was gaslit and misled many times while trying to do his job and obtain these things that he was promised. And this is very clearly censorship, corporate bullying, and a stain on the entire event. It's abuse, plain and simple.
Now with this person I will do things willingly, with this person I will do things unwillingly. This may be two people, two aspects of life, two communities, two nations, two many things. This I will do willingly, this I do unwillingly. This means I've decided in my mind this is good, this is bad. When I hear even on national news channels, good guys and bad guys, it just, once you have this kind of thing, you are going to be disastrous to the planet. It's just a question of time.
So I'm going to go ahead and read, for a change of pace, a couple of stories. And these stories are from Tibetan folk tales by someone named Shelton. And it was published in 1925. So I'm going to go ahead and read, for a change of pace, a couple of stories. And so this is the story of the Coney who got into bad company. It says, if you are without kindness, you will meet no kindness in return. Tibetan proverb. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, when the world was young and new, and the mountaintops were all peaks, and the Garden of Eden had not been pushed up towards the sky by the big high mountains of central Tibet, men and animals understood each other. In a desert place, away among the mountains, was a little hut of mud and stone, and in this little hut, with its dirt floor, dwelt an old lama. His house furnishings were very meager. There was a small piece of beaten felt, upon which he slept at night, and sat on cross-legged most of the day. He had no clothing, and wore no covering at night, except the one gown that he wore. He had some baskets of grain and sacks of samba, an earthenware pot for tea, and a small wooden bowl from which he ate. He dwelt in this house, away from people, that he might meditate and pray a good deal, and so acquire holiness. Every day he sat pondering the questions of life, and thinking about the little animals as well. There was a Coney by the name of Susha, and a rat by the name of Mukjong. These two were great friends and cronies, and both pretended to be friends with the old lama. But at night, when he was asleep for a little while, they would sneak into his hut and steal all the grain they could find. One day, the llama decided that these two were not really his friends, but were just pretending to be, and that they came to see him every day to discover what he had in the hut, and then planned to come back at night and steal it. He said, "I'll just set a trap and catch them." So he fixed one of his round baskets into a little drop trap, and that night caught them both. Next morning he found them, cut off their whiskers, ears, and tails, and turned them loose. They were very angry and said to him, "We belong to the Aberrang, and that is a class that doesn't lie, nor steal, nor do any bad or dishonest thing. And you know we are your friends, and have not stolen your stuff at all. We just wanted to see what you had in your basket, and now see what you've done to us. Well, we're going to go to our kings and ask them to send an army to take your grain for sure, so you better make a lot of traps to catch us all when we come." The rat, very much ashamed of his condition, went to the king and showed him what had been done to him, telling him that he was innocent and asking that his king organize an army and attack the old llama as a punishment for what had been done to him. The king, who was an old man, agreed to do so at once if the king of the conies would aid him. But when he asked the king of the conies, he refused to help, as he knew the rat had been guilty. After the delegation had gone, the king of the conies called the coney to him, who came, looking very much ashamed, and told what had happened to him. The king said, "You only got what you deserved. When you are found in bad company, you are judged as guilty as they. The rats are thieves and robbers, and have been since the beginning of time. And when you are found with that kind of people, you are thought to be just as bad as they. The conies are not thieving folk, as you well know, and my advice to you is to never be found in the company of the rat or his kind of people again." The story is how the fox fell victim to his own deceit. And the proverb is, "Between the official and his people is confidence, if the headman is skillful." Once upon a time, away up in the corner of the mountains, in a little cave, lived a tiger and her baby cub. She had brought for this baby, one day when she was out hunting, a little fox to be his playmate. The fox had a happy time and an easy one, for he didn't have to work or hunt, but played all day, and the mother tiger kept them all supplied with food. One day she went out to hunt, and found a little calf, which she took home to be another playmate for her son. But the fox was much displeased and became very jealous of the calf, because he thought they all loved the calf better than he, and that only the food that was left over was given to him. As a matter of fact, they treated him just the same as ever, but his heart was wrong, and he began to plan how he might be revenged on the calf. After a while, the mother tiger became very ill, and as she was about to die, she called the calf and her son to her side and said, "Although you are not of the same father and mother, yet you are brothers. I don't want you to ever quarrel, but to live happily here together. And if anyone should tell you lies, don't pay any attention to them, but always be friends." So saying, she died. And I think this honest communication is one of the key lessons in this one. Now, the fox saw his opportunity. Every morning the calf was in the habit of running and playing, and jumping and shaking his horns in fun, bellowing and taking exercise, while the tiger preferred to lie and rest. So one morning, while the calf was skipping around, the fox slipped up on the tiger and said, "Although the calf always says he is your friend, have you any idea what he is thinking about when he runs and jumps and shakes his horns in that manner? In his heart he hates you, and in that manner is gaining strength in order that he may be able to kill you." This, of course, made the tiger suspicious and very angry. So daily he watched the calf very closely and became sour and surly. Then the fox went to the calf and said, "You know, your mother told you and the tiger that you were to be brothers, but see, he is growing larger and stronger every day, and his heart has changed, and he is preparing to kill and eat you." The tiger and the calf were now enemies, and watched each other with a great deal of suspicion, and were very unhappy. Finally one day the calf said to the tiger, "Why do you want to kill me and eat me? I have done you no harm, and love you just as your mother said I should." The tiger replied, "I love you just the same, and never thought of doing such a thing until the fox said you were preparing to kill me." Then they realized that the fox had been trying to make them enemies, and they decided on a plan to get even with the fox. The tiger said, "I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll have a sham fight, saying we hate each other, and we're going to fight it out and see who wins. Ask him to be present, and while we're in the midst of it, I'll attack him." The day came, and they began their fight. They maneuvered round and round, and seemed to be fighting very fiercely, until they came very near to the fox, when the tiger made a jump and landed on him, and killed him, and sat down and had a feast of the carcass. This shows what happens to those who try to make trouble between friends. I also busted out my book, Pronoia, by Rob Bresney. Says the antidote for paranoia, how the whole world is conspiring to shower you with blessings. I just opened to a random page, and this was on one side. And you shouldn't get mystical about the number 7, for sure. What it says is, everyone's a nobody, and nobody's perfect. Let's see what this other side says. Wes Nisker wrote a book called If You Don't Like the News, Go Out and Make Some of Your Own. Then the quote here at the bottom of the page says, "The rise and fall of images of the future precede or accompany the rise and fall of cultures. As long as society's image is positive and flourishing, the flower of culture is in full bloom. Once the image begins to decay and lose its vitality, the culture does not long survive." And that was sociologist Fred Pollack. Pollack? P-O-L-A-K.
A true faith will just look at people's hearts, right? It's like, well, if your heart is not in this, then why are you even here? Like,
if you create a very pleasant, wonderful atmosphere, everybody behaves wonderfully. If you create an unpleasant atmosphere, a whole lot of people act nasty. Yes or no?
How much courage is needed to play forever, as the ravines play, as the river plays. I'm actually going to talk about this feather here now. This blue bird feather. I'm sure it's been dyed blue, but it's interesting that this is here. I didn't actually realize the connotations of it until I started making this video. So I'll start off by saying that when I started hearing about the blue avians and this information, one of the first things I did was to contact the extraterrestrials that I communicate with and to ask them to give me some gnosis or direction on whether or not this was something that could be trusted. And either immediately when I asked or sometime very soon, I looked up at the sky and I saw it was a ship like I hadn't seen before. It was kind of like a donutty disc, but it seemed like kind of the front was lit up and like it glowed kind of rainbow and shot across the sky and disappeared real quick. And as I saw this, I got telepathic communication telling me that there are these blue avians and that they are trying to communicate with us. So I've had that and other more personal gnoses of that situation, especially concerning the energetic dynamics and the forces at play here. But the feather is a really interesting one because I actually received this feather before I even knew about the blue avians or any of this stuff, and it's been sitting in my art drawer for about a year, maybe even more, a year and a half or so. And I received it from a fellow light worker, this is kind of crazy, after I had helped her with her YouTube channel. And it would have kind of stayed in storage except for this continuing run of events where Tom, who I had almost blocked before this happened because he kind of came off as aggressive, but you know, we talked it out. And he posted a video on using the feather as a talking stick. And that put the idea in my head till my most recent church service, which includes sky watching for UFOs, and which I just started holding 3.5 weeks ago. And at this church service, a friend of mine with a bit of a habit of talking over others also showed up, and this was his first time attending, and this was Wednesday. So I kind of saw the feather and thought of the blue avians. I was like, that's kind of funny. And didn't really think anything more of it, stuck it up here after I was done using it. And then I noticed it was in the video as I was recording earlier. I caught the connection there right before missing the chance to even include it in this video. So to me, that's a hell of a string of coincidences for me to not even be aware of and then come to fruition like that. It really goes with my opinion of how the truth in things are naturally self-evident, and if you just look a little bit, listen a little bit, keep an open mind, you can find evidences for things that you might think impossible through strange means. But at the same time, it's a natural, unforced expression of the universe. And I think that's really where you start getting down to confirming things for yourself and using yourself as a tool for exploration and finding truth. You have to be able to find these things and discern them and see what arises without compulsion. As Terence McKenna said, the truth doesn't need you to bow your head to it. You can put it to the test. You can ask for evidences, and when you're in the flow with things, they'll naturally arise. I'd also like to read a little bit of this passage I found here on the internet. It says, what do they want for proof? There is no proof. There are no authorities whatever. No president, academy, court of law, Congress, or Senate on this earth has the knowledge or power to decide what will be the knowledge of tomorrow. There is no use in trying to prove something that is unknown to somebody who is ignorant of the unknown, or fearful of its threatening power. Only the good old rules of learning will eventually bring about understanding of what has invaded our earthly existence. The invasion that Wilhelm Reich refers to in his introduction to Contact with Space, that's the book title, the passage I just read was from, is the invasion of Earth by intelligences from outer space. Very few copies of this remarkable book were made available, and Reich's extraordinary experiences during this turbulent period have been swept under the carpet by orthodox orgonomy. And if you aren't aware of Wilhelm Reich, I would suggest there's a fantastic Higher Side Chats episode on him with Peter Robbins. And that goes into quite a bit, including his UFO experiences, so that should be at least a good introduction. I'll also post the link in the description. And lastly, I'd like to share one of my favorite meditations. It's going to be down in the description. And this is a Kali meditation from Ram Dass. He wrote Be Here Now. Definitely a book to check out if you haven't. And this is a meditation for receiving answers and guidance, as well as clearing out the things that are affecting you. So if you'd like to, just go ahead and take a listen to that and ask yourself if this is something you maybe need to take another look at, or whether these things that I've brought up are things that need to be taken possibly a bit more seriously. And PPPS, if you'd like to look further into contact and making connection with things, I'm also going to include the link for the stuff we watched at my last church meeting down in the bottom too. So you'll be able to find all that. Well, it seems like I was right about the divine timing here, because I have a I had a joke to go here, but it's not here anymore. But another postscript for this magical carpet ride on this sea of illusion. Um, blows my mind here that Cliff High is involved with all these people, and that he knows all about AI and all of this technology, and he also very much has the capability to control this entire narrative with AI. If he has the psychological know-how and linguistic know-how, which is very likely from someone working with predictive language programming. And someone also doing predictive language programming would have a very high ability to know what was going on and be able to control these situations. And I actually have a personal experience here again. After listening to a Cliff High interview, this was about 2 years ago, I believe, I ran into several AI cults right after, and I believe it was because of this programming. And what's interesting about these AI cults is they were pretending to be helping everyone, helping the Earth, and pretending to have a form of Bitcoin that was decentralized, but that was a lie that they admitted in their videos. So I'll just leave y'all to ponder and expand on some processes. It would probably be wise as well to vet any account that is sharing information on your channels, and not immediately follow those things, as it could be just programming misinformation or something that is going to mislead you. You need to look into these accounts, and if you can, look into neuro-linguistic programming, which is one of the techniques that words are used to control what your brain thinks when they're spoken by other people. This is a lot of these things can be found by looking into Robert Anton Wilson and the stuff he was talking about. Aloha and blessings, everyone.